Hey, welcome back, everybody. Great to see you. Hopefully, we're having a wonderful Sunday out there, and we're still trying to figure out these pre-Christmas storm systems. Kind of two of them that we're watching going into this week. One kind of during the middle part of the week, and then another one that I think is going to be a little bit more intriguing for most folks as we go into the weekend. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure we really know much more today about them than we did yesterday. And unfortunately, that's just kind of the name of the game sometimes. But I will give you the latest information that we do have. I'll tell you my thoughts. I'll tell you what I think is going to happen, where I think it's going to go, and who I think has the best chance at some pre-Christmas snowfall, and who might be out of luck. Now, if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and do so. Like the video and comment. Let me know where you're watching from. And yeah, I think other than that, we can go and jump on into it and start talking about the forecast. Now, before we get to Christmas and all of that fun stuff in the week ahead, we have active weather out there right now into portions of the Ohio Valley, up into the Northeast, and even down into the Mid-Atlantic, where winter weather is already ongoing. And it's all thanks to this guy right here, the center of low pressure that is currently over portions of Illinois and Indiana at the time I'm recording this morning, with you can see plenty of that precipitation out ahead of it, along this difluent zone of our mid-level trough. Now, like I said, a little bit of everything falling from that right now. We've got some ice in places, snowfall in other places, and just good old-fashioned rain as well, depending on where you're at. But out west, another storm system lingering behind this one. This one is eventually going to ride in the north, and this will be the second storm system this week. But this one, I think, is not going to be a big deal for a lot of folks. It'll bring some rain, even a little bit of snow up into portions of the northern plains. But it's what's after both of these that is obviously, I think, going to be the bigger deal, as we see two potential storm systems later this coming week that could both bring an injection of cold air right before Christmas, including potentially even Arctic air for some folks. Now, starting off with our radar here after the satellite, and you can see that mess out east. All of the green and the red that you're seeing, and the yellows and the oranges, that is rain falling from the current storm system. Blue is snow, and then some of this pink and purple you're seeing, that is sleet or freezing rain. We had a bit of an icy mess yesterday into Iowa and overnight into portions of Michigan. Definitely let me know how much ice you folks saw and if there were any impacts locally from it. But today it's going to be the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast's turn. We had some ice reports down towards Blacksburg, Virginia this morning. Some snow and ice reports further up the mountain from there. And some people are going to get a pretty good little winter event out of this up into portions of Pennsylvania and New York State. I should probably draw that a little bit better, really more like that. Are going to see, a good 2 to 4 plus inches of snow before all is said and done today. Now, outside of there, we do also have some active weather back out west. Here's that secondary storm system I mentioned, bringing some snow, some rain, and also some ice here into the northern Rockies and the northern plains during your Sunday and probably even into tomorrow as well. Now, watches, warnings, advisories, all that fun stuff. A pretty active map here as well. All the pink that you're seeing is winter weather advisories. Winter storm warnings all the purple is winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings in the pink there for, again, a pretty good little winter event here today through portions of the apps. In fact, winter weather advisories extending all the way down towards the South Carolina line and North Carolina due to that strong cold air damming that is keeping that cold air at the surface and leading to some of this wintry precipitation, and then enough of that wintry precipitation that those advisories are actually warnings here into extreme western Maryland and into the highest terrains of West Virginia and extreme southern Pennsylvania here, not far from Pittsburgh, with some of that winter weather this afternoon. Also, some winter weather advisories left over in Michigan, where we are seeing some of that leftover freezing rain from last night and still lingering into the morning. All of these gray boxes you see in the plains, those are dense fog advisories, pretty foggy conditions for a big section of the country today, actually. Not often you see that many people under dense fog advisories, but sure enough, it's happening today. And then further up to the north, we have more winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings out into the Rockies and into the northern plains. Now, let's go ahead and talk meteorology in minutes today. Like I said, kind of two storm systems in the near term, and then after that, that's when things get a little bit more exciting. All right, so the current storm system, here we go, right over the Indiana, Illinois, Ohio area. Like I mentioned, the secondary storm is up here kind of into the Montana area. Both of these storms are bringing impacts, but the first one probably bringing higher end impacts for most folks. And again, like per usual, when we talk about these, it's along these dive-fluent sides of these troughs where we get the most lift, and thus that's where we're seeing most of the precipitation falling. So far today. Now we'll bring this further ahead into time, into this evening. Both of these storm systems move off to their respective locations. The first one kind of riding south through the northeast. Again, that's going to help to bring some snow as it takes a little bit further of a south track. Enough cold air left to the north through portions of Pennsylvania and New York State. For some pretty good snowfall totals. And then back into the northern plains, this storm system is also going to have enough cold air kind of around it. Not necessarily an injection of cold air with this one, but enough cold air left over here into the Dakotas and Minnesota that we're likely to see some snow showers out of that one as well throughout the day today, and probably really even into tomorrow. And speaking of tomorrow, as we get into Monday, our first piece of energy gets out of here. Our second piece continues to kind of ride the Canadian-U.S. border here, and that will bring enough lift for some precipitation into the northern tier of the country during the first half of the week. Really probably going to be all rain, even for the Great Lakes out of that one. And then it's after that we get into the middle of this coming week, and that's when things get a little bit more interesting here. And we will kind of break that down in depth a little more in just a second. But before we get there, let's go ahead and finish breaking down the current storm system and give you the latest details. Now, this is expected radar throughout the day today. This is about the time the video is getting released, probably even a little bit later than that. This is 10 a.m. Doing a pretty good job of showing things here. We've got mainly rain here through Michigan, Ohio, all the way back down into the Tennessee Valley. And then the highest elevations of the Virginias getting some snow and ice mixing in here on your Sunday, kind of later in the morning. Now we get this into the afternoon, and that shield of precipitation continues to work eastbound. We're breaking out with all snow into central PA, and then rain elsewhere, rain back down into the southern tier in the southeastern United States, from the Carolinas all the way back towards Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama. Really just kind of a cloudy, showery day for a lot of folks here. And then all of this precipitation continues on its train track across the eastern U.S., and this is, again, where I think we're going to have the highest chance of, maybe not significant, but impressive enough snowfall totals here into portions of Pennsylvania, New York State, through the Finger Lakes, the Catskills, in and around the Scranton area, and then even back down towards Harrisburg and State College. Likely to see some of that wintry precipitation. All rain south of there by this afternoon. I think even the mountains of North Carolina and the Virginias will be changing to rain by the time we get to this evening and overnight tonight, as that warm air kind of erodes whatever is left of that cold air, but staying all snow and cold there through portions of Pennsylvania, New York, even a couple snow flurries possible in Boston overnight tonight. Same story for Hartford and Providence. And then all good old-fashioned rain through Jersey, Philly, New York City, and down into the Delmarva. That gets us into Monday afternoon. First storm is out of here by then, but here's the second storm. You'll notice kind of the center of it way up north along the U.S.-Canadian border, but enough precipitation, as this does have a little bit of a cold front with it here, producing some lift and a nice little shield of rain, kind of really crossing the country. All the way back from Texas into the Tennessee, the Ohio valleys, and up into portions of Ontario, getting in on that rain. This is Monday afternoon, but becoming weaker as it moves east, so we're going to lose some of that precipitation further south here through the southeastern United States, but it will probably maintain itself enough to bring some rainfall into the northeast from New York State, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, northbound into New England. And again, excuse me, all rain out of this one. Really, all the cold air that we have is going to be gone by then, as the first storm kind of pushes enough warm air north, and this one's going to continue to push warm air north. And it's going to start to feel pretty warm, actually, for this time of year. But do not get fooled, because that will change by the time we go later on into this week. Now, snowfall totals. This is the forecast from the National Weather Service from 7 a.m. Eastern Time today through basically the end of the event. So if you're watching this anytime after 7 a.m. and something has fallen on the ground, subtract that from these totals. But you'll notice definitely elevation dependent, but a pretty good swath here of 2 to 4 inches of snow in some of those higher elevations, a little bit lower in some spots, a little bit higher in others. Again, it's going to depend how high up on the mountain you are. If you're in these highest peaks here into north central PA, you could get 3 to 5, maybe even half a foot of snow in some isolated places. Same story here for the Catskills. And kind of surrounding areas, but the valleys maybe a dusting upwards of an inch, really more likely though to be mostly a rain event there into the lower elevations. Same story down here into the Virginias and western Maryland, some snow for those higher elevations, not so much for the lower elevations. But I do think a storm system we get later on this week might not be so elevation dependent. It might just be more location dependent on the map in kind of the XY coordinates and not so much the Z coordinates, if you will. All right, so I think the way we're going to do this is we're going to look at the two The two main model runs will start with the GFS, then we'll get to the European on the operational side of things, and then we'll kind of break down both the models, get into the nitty-gritties, and then into the ensembles, and probably go from there, but that's really going to be most of what we do today. All right, so here we go. Starting where the last models left off. In fact, we'll skip this ahead a little bit into Tuesday morning. Again, some rain here into the northeast from that northern storm system, but it's really what's happening back out west that's more important. Notice more low pressure beginning to develop, and we're seeing a pretty good pocket of cold air up here into Canada. In fact, you can really see it kind of beginning to ooze down in this orientation. That is eventually going to work towards the south and east and likely bring enough lift for some low pressure to form. And here we go. That's exactly what happens. This is Wednesday morning. I will also mention a feisty little storm out here off the West Coast as well. Speaking of the West Coast, we had a tornado yesterday in San Francisco. Not something you see every day. That flew under my radar, and I'm sure under many people's radar, including, I don't even think the Storm Prediction Center had a risk area out yesterday. But it goes to show these Pacific storms can mean just as much business as kind of the storms that start over the lower 48. It's just there's more population in the east, so we don't talk about it as much, but those are definitely powerful storms off the West Coast, and another one on the way here for your Wednesday there into the PNW. But back to the east, here is our storm number one out of two, I would say, or at least the potential for two storms during the colder pattern right before Christmas. And it looks like all rain into the south here through Kentucky, Tennessee, maybe even a little bit of a severe weather risk. We'll watch it, and as we get a little bit closer, we'll know more. But I do think there will be a severe weather potential, at least, on the table. But this time, we've got a cold air injection on the north. So we're changing back to snow. This system is going to be the start of that colder pattern. We've got snow falling through portions of Michigan Wednesday morning. And then probably going to be close here into Ohio. Whether that's rain or snow is going to depend on the exact track of this low pressure. Any movement north or south obviously would change it. But then on the European, this works into the northeast, and it's a minor event. It does bring snow into New York State, into Vermont, New Hampshire. This is Wednesday afternoon, into Maine on Wednesday evening. All rain for the I-95 corridor, though. And I'll add, the storm has also trended a little bit weaker. It looked a little bit stronger a run or two ago. Now looks just kind of a quick in and out of here, but definitely could impact some folks on your Wednesday. Now that gets out of here, and that brings some cold air with it. Notice these blue isobars beginning to dip southward. What happens, though, is then storm number two comes. And remember, the cold air has been established at this point from the first storm. Now, not super cold air. This isn't Arctic air from the first storm, but it's polar air, and it is cold enough to produce snow for what is a second storm that you see beginning to form. This one bringing snow into the northern plains here, into the Midwest from Minnesota, Wisconsin, northern North Dakota. This is Thursday morning. Thursday afternoon flies down into the Great Lakes, brings some snow to folks that have really already seen it, but could bring some more snow to portions of Wisconsin that I don't think have seen significant snow so far this winter, at least on this model run. This gets us to Thursday afternoon and then into overnight Thursday, and here we go Friday morning. We've got a nice little storm system kind of working down into the northeast, and this isn't quite a clipper. In fact, it has fronts with it. You can see the troughs associated here. Here's your cold front. Here's your warm front. So not a clipper system by any means, but brings more than enough lift and cold air with it that we've got snow showers breaking out into much of the northeast, including places outside of the interior northeast. This has snow showers in Philly, some flakes trying to fly in New York City, Jersey, up into Boston. Now this, again, does not look like a big event at this point, but then watch what the European does. I talk about this a lot in Meteorology in Minutes. What we have here is we have a trough, and here's our diverging side. That's where you want, or that's where generally lift happens. What you also have is a natural baroclinic zone here across the coast. That's just where kind of warmer ocean temperatures kind of clash with cooler continental temperatures. That creates, a boundary that is easy to get spin going if you get enough lift above it. And that's what happens on the European. We begin to see that lift across that favorable area for cyclogenesis. And we begin to get a bit of a storm. Actually, you know what? I just realized that this is the GFS I'm showing you, not the European. I've been saying the European this entire time. This is the GFS model, but what the GFS tries to get going, same idea, and I kind of spoiled the European a little bit, sorry, is some low pressure beginning to develop. Now, it's hard to see. It's right here at the corner of your screen, but if I move this into the Canadian view for us, let's see here, regional, and we will go to Eastern Canada. and we'll move this ahead in time to where we were. Here is that enough lift that I was talking about for a bit of a storm system to get going. And here it is. It's an all-out winter storm, borderline blizzard for portions of Nova Scotia and up into Newfoundland. Now, my folks in the United States are thinking, all right, that's cool. Why should I care, basically? Well, I'll tell you why. Here's the European. For real this time, that one was the GFS. I promise I'll look at my models this time. So the European will start at the same time frame. That's all the boring stuff that's happening on Tuesday. Here comes the next storm system. Very similar now. The models have come into pretty good agreement on the first storm. Now, one little difference is the GFS is a little bit further north than this model, which, again, I will remind you and myself is the European. So the GFS had some snow up into Michigan. The European's a little bit further south, but that could increase maybe some snow chances into Ohio. Again, little details like that will iron out in the mesoscale range through the coming days. But that kind of swings on through here, and just like the GFS, a minor snow event for portions of the interior Northeast. The European, even a little bit further south, maybe get some flakes in and around the Boston area. But overall, a pretty minor event. Now, here comes the next storm system, though, pretty similar as well, a little bit further on the track here on the European, but this is Thursday afternoon, bringing snow up through portions of northern Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan, and then snow showers into the Northeast. But here is where the fun part happens. Now, the GFS did the same thing that you just saw in the European, and I'll show it to you again, don't worry. But the European digs this trough a little bit quicker, turns it negatively tilted a little bit quicker, and that means our maximized lift happens instead of over portions of Atlantic Canada, happens along the Northeast coastline, and we get a strong phasing here. And look at this. This is overnight Friday into Saturday, a heavy snowstorm, winter storm here, borderline blizzard possible up through portions of Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, not far from Boston, and then that kind of hangs out for a while, and then either way, right after it, we get strong cold air to kind of lock into place here over the eastern half of the country for the days leading right up to Christmas. And then there's been a little bit of a signal right around Christmas itself of another storm system out here. We'll get there when we get there, but you notice the differences between the models. Well, why are they different? Here's one reason. Again, the first storm, I think we're starting to lock down a little bit. That one looks a little bit more minor. The second storm, though, still has potential for bigger impacts. So here's the vorticity map on the GFS. This is Friday evening of this coming week, and I'll show you this. And now here's the European for the exact same time frame. Here's the GFS. Here's the European. Now, one big difference I'll show you on the European is this is a bit more of a stronger trough, and it's actually changed a little bit where the GFS was digging further south and had a stronger trough. Overnight, the European was a little bit stronger, and maybe not digging so far south, but either way, you notice how this becomes neutrally tilted over kind of the Virginias. That means by the time we get into Saturday afternoon, this becomes negatively tilted over the Delmarva, and that's when oftentimes the phasing happens. Once this hits a negative tilt, that's when you get enough lift for that low pressure to form, and the European does it right over prime space here along the northeast coastline. The GFS it doesn't, it's kind of struggling to get its full piece of energy, and then it finally has, a bit more of a negative piece of energy here by the time we get into, this is the early morning hours of Sunday, but it's a lot more broad. It's not quite as tight and confined as the European model was. Therefore, your low pressure develops more out here into that difluent zone. So really the big difference between the models here is the orientation of this energy and the trough, and that's what we need to find out as we go ahead into time. Now, what I can tell you, and is a promising look for snow lovers in the Northeast, is this. These are the European ensemble members for where they think low pressure will be. This is Wednesday evening. Here's that first little storm. Again, the minor one that kind of crosses on through isn't a big deal for anybody. Here comes our next storm system, though, beginning up into Montana and eventually working down across the northern tier of the country. And it's right here that things get exciting. This is Friday morning. Here's one piece of energy over the Great Lakes, but you'll notice beginning to see some low pressure try to develop here along the southeast coastline, along a bit of a, again, favorable area for cyclogenesis. And the European model and the ensembles have a clear signal for a phasing storm here that dives out of the north, kind of loses its steam here, and then instead gets picked up by some coastal energy. and then rides up the coast. That is a very prevalent thing on the European ensembles, and we've got some pretty favorable positioning. Any of these members right into here, folks, those will be enough to produce a pretty good little winter storm here, I think, for somebody in the Northeast, even these members. Now, is it going to be the I-95 corridor? I don't know. Nobody really knows. But what I can show you are the ensemble members' snowfall outputs. And you see that does ride up the coast there. And then behind it, it gets really cold just in time for Christmas weekend, or at least the weekend before it. Snowfall potential, storm number 1, this is the European ensembles. This is the chance of at least an inch of snow falling within a 24-hour period. Key is along the bottom of your screen there to tell you what the colors mean. Storm number 1, like I said, there's a signal for sure, and I do think somebody in the interior Northeast will probably get a quick inch or 2 plus, maybe even 3, 4, 5 inches, not out of the question. That one even still probably going to be a little elevation dependent, but overall we should have enough cold air that it's really just going to be a fine line north or south, not so much up or down like today's storm system. Then storm number 2, though, works on through. This is Friday afternoon, and you'll notice, like I mentioned, starting up into the plains, diving south through the Great Lakes, and then potentially phasing, and this is where things could get interesting. Now, you'll notice on the European model, we'll back it up. First snow chances start into the interior Northeast. We do have chances down into areas a little bit closer to the I-95, but it's right around this time frame here that the models get a little bit more all over the place. This is into the weekend. In fact, we've got some members with snow down in Virginia. Some members have snow all the way down into the Carolinas. Now, when I say some members, I mean like 1 out of 50, so don't get too excited, but you get the idea. The models begin to spread pretty significantly here once we get towards the weekend on where exactly that potential snow band could set up, if it sets up at all. Again, there's a chance it doesn't still, but that isn't a terrible look. Now, I'll show you the GFS ensembles. Storm number 1, like I mentioned, same story as the European. Storm number 2, here we go. A pretty good signal once more for snow somewhere in the Northeast, even some of these members down into the mid-Atlantic, down through West Virginia and into the mountains of North Carolina. So we'll see. It's still up in the air. I will also show you the blend of models through Christmas morning, basically. And you do note that the highest chance of accumulating snowfall will be in the northern tier of the country through the Great Lakes and then into the Northeast, including potentially the I-95 corridor. Now, I think especially the Boston area down through Connecticut, Rhode Island is going to have the highest chance of snow out of this. Now, New York City down towards Jersey, Philly, New York City, Baltimore, I would put a lower chance on this storm bringing you the goods, but it is still possible. There's a lot to iron out here. And a lot of details that we will figure out. As for the Carolinas, never say never until it's over, but a pretty low chance right now of any sort of accumulating snowfall before Christmas. Non-zero, but pretty low. Final map, our temperatures this afternoon. It's chilly into those CAD-favored regions. We're still running about 5 to 10 degrees below average, but if you're a fan of the warmth, don't worry, here it comes. Monday afternoon, we are back to above average temperatures. We're talking 10 to 20 degrees above what we should be this time of year, really through much of the country, especially east of the Rockies. That hangs on through Tuesday afternoon. And then into Wednesday afternoon, you'll notice the cold air once again starts working southward. One shot of some chillier temperatures works through by Thursday, and then the hammer drops with more Arctic air on the way just in time for next weekend. This is next Monday morning, so about a week from now. We're talking 10, or not even 10, 20, maybe 30 degrees below what we should be this time of year through much of the eastern half of the country, at least according to the European model. And that's why we have those snow chances. Do we get the precipitation? That's the question mark. I think we'll have the cold. Alrighty, folks, that's all I got for you on this Sunday. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Again, if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and do so. Like the video if you liked it, and comment, let me know where you're watching from. Alrighty, folks, have a great rest of your day. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you all next time.